question all the different realities that we see on one map. Moving on for the next set of talks, we will have 2 different Zoom rooms. So one will be the one we're in right now, and the other one will be at the link in this chat on the right. The talks will be going on in both rooms throughout the next several hours, so please feel free to check into one room or another as you please. And you can always refer to the program on the Summit website and also in the chat, again, on the right, for a full rundown of the program. The final keynote will be here in the main room of the Summit at 1740 UTC time. The next talk to be held in the other room at the link will be CGen BC, a collaborative mapping project of cycling infrastructure in Medellin, Colombia. Please head over to the other room now to attend the talk using that link. In this room, I am delighted to welcome Olivier Cottray and Ryan Lenclos of Esri to the floor to tell us about OSM and ArcGIS.
Thank you very much. Can I just do a quick sound check?
Yep, sounds great.
Sounds good, Olivier.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, let me just share my screen now. Okay, and can I just check that you have my screen?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much. And thank you, Hot Team, for inviting us here to speak today. It's really great to be here. And I just want to also point out how much I enjoyed Emily's talk just now. I thought that was absolutely fascinating, really inspiring. I'd love to learn more about this personally. Really big thanks for that. So my name is Olivier Cottray. I joined Esri just a couple months ago as its director for Humanitarian Solutions. And I'm joined by my colleague Ryan Lenclos, Director for Public Safety and Disaster Response. We're going to be providing you with an overview on what's new with OpenStreetMap and ArcGIS. But before that, I will provide you a little bit of context on our Humanitarian Solutions team and its objectives. And Ryan will close off the presentation with a review of our disaster response program and its relationship with HOT. So in a nutshell, my role in the team's role, the humanitarian team's role at Esri consists of promoting best practice in the use of Esri GIS solutions across the humanitarian sector. So making sure, especially that Esri users are getting the most out of the systems that they're invested in and maximize their humanitarian impact with them. Now, as a recent user myself, I know that navigating and discovering and accessing the myriad solutions out there can be and it can be quite hard to narrow down the solution set that's right for your particular purpose. So a first phase of our work is to organize these resources into what we're calling a humanitarian GIS hub, which will provide packages of use case specific solutions. So templates and how-to documents, training courses, data sources. So users are able to quickly filter resources according to the specific challenge that they're trying to solve. Of course, a fundamental resource that most people are after is data. And this is what we're here to speak about today, and more specifically, how ArcGIS users can leverage OSM data and also contribute back. So how do ArcGIS and OSM data layers interact? Now, in terms of how Esri has supported our user community to engage with OSM data, our goals are to enable our users to access OSM data more easily and to contribute their data if they wish. And we want to help improve OSM data, so it's even more useful for mapping, geocoding, routing, analysis, etc. So there's now a two-way engagement, so to speak, where OSM data can now be used to support ArcGIS use cases, and conversely, ArcGIS users can now contribute and give back to the OSM community and enrich the data set. Looking back, Esri's been a supporter of the OpenStreetMap project for many years. We've been a corporate member of OSM for several years, sponsor of State of the Map events and this summit. And as you'll see, our interoperability has continuously evolved. About 10 years ago, Esri started referencing the OSM hosted raster tiles as one of their featured base maps in ArcGIS Online. So you might be familiar with that if you've used any of our ArcGIS Online mapping functionalities or ArcGIS Pro. Since then, we've also developed the ArcGIS editor for OSM that enables ArcGIS users to edit OSM data in their own projects. And more recently, Esri enabled the use of our world imagery Basemap in popular OSM editors, including ID, Rapid ID, and GeoSM. So let's look at this a little bit more closely and also look ahead a little bit. So just as I just mentioned, for several years, Esri's used OSM data as part of the Esri basemaps that we make available. In ArcGIS, we use OSM data in parts of the world where we don't already have high quality data from commercial or community data providers, such as those highlighted here. In the past couple of years, Esri began creating and hosting a new OpenStreetMap vector basemap using OSM data and cartography. So that map's hosted in ArcGIS Online, updated about every 3 weeks with the latest OSM data. It's freely available to all users, including the OSM community, of course, and it's provided under a Creative Commons license. And we now offer multiple map styles of the OSM vector base map to support different use cases, and you have the ability to create your own custom style using our vector tile style editor app. Now, in addition to our vector base map, this year we're introducing new OpenStreetMap feature layers hosted in ArcGIS Online to support visualization, analysis, and eventually extract capabilities. So this will include layers such as buildings, highways, amenities, and several more layers based on popular OSM tags. And one of the best features of these layers is that they'll be updated with minutely diffs from OSM. So they'll feature the latest updates. And these layers can be used as is or restyled to meet your needs. So there's a large and growing set of these feature layers available now, including so in North America, Africa, Central America, Australia, and Antarctica, and more regions are being added as we go along. And you can access those layers through an OpenStreetMap layers group in ArcGIS Online. To explore the OSM base maps and other offerings we make available through our, you can visit the website we set up, maintain openstreetmap.maps@arcgis.com, and you can access all of the maps and layers freely and anonymously, excuse me. So if you want to create your own web map or web app using these OSM map layers, you can sign in with an ArcGIS account. And if you don't have an account, you can visit arcgis.com to sign up for a free public account and use that to create web maps and apps with any of the OSM apps and layers that are available. And we've compiled a list of resources which which you'll see in a later slide, and I'll paste it in the chat as well for you to explore a little bit more. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of our goals is to help improve and help enrich OSM data. And one of the ways we've been doing that recently is by integrating authoritative data from the Esri user community that's available through ArcGIS Open Data, which is a capability that's included in ArcGIS Online. So we downloaded open data shared by our users, prepared that data for integration with OpenStreetMap, and then import many of those features into OSM following the import guidelines. So this was done initially for building footprints and address points for Redlands, California, Flagstaff, Arizona. And with the support of those cities and a few days of effort, we added about 100,000 features into OpenStreetMap. And we've since downloaded and prepared open data for several more communities, including the cities listed here, which are now available to add to OSM. So this data is being shared in a new group in ArcGIS Online, which already includes over 2 million features that can be added. And lastly, we've just introduced a new data sharing option for our Community Maps program. So Esri Community Maps contributors now have the option to share their contributed data with other mapping platforms, including OpenStreetMap. And Esri will then prepare this data for use in OSM and share with the group mentioned above. Now, looking ahead a bit, working with developers at Facebook and elsewhere to add support for ArcGIS that's Rapid and JOSM. So we're introducing an updated version of Rapid that will enable OSM editors to access high quality open data sets from the ArcGIS community and add them to OpenStreetMap through simple to use tools. So I'm going to summarize a little bit here to wrap up before I hand over to Ryan. So ArcGIS includes an OSM vector basemap that's freely available for you to use in your maps and apps and is now available in multiple styles. ArcGIS now includes dozens of live feature layers of OSM data, which are updated frequently with the latest available OSM data. And ArcGIS now offers a new community maps data sharing option to enable sharing open data with other mapping platforms. And these ArcGIS datasets will be available to add or import to OSM. So as data is added to OSM through these tools, the edits will typically appear in our live feature layers within a few minutes, and in our vector base maps within a few weeks. So for latest updates on all these offerings and information on how to participate, you can visit the ArcGIS Living Atlas blog. And as I said, there's also these resources that you feel free to visit. I will copy and paste those. I've got a pasteable version, which I'll put in the chat for you right now. And with that, I'll hand over to Ryan, who will introduce the disaster response program. So over to you, Ryan.
Great, thanks, Olivier, and hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to join the community and contribute today. Wherever you're from in the world, hello, and thanks for spending time and allowing us to share a bit of our work here at Esri with you as a community. As Olivier mentioned, I think what we just described is a lot of work that's gone into preparedness, if you will, if you think about the life cycle of a crisis or disaster, the ability for us to make sure that Esri users can access OSM data to make better decisions, to get the minutely diffs that are coming in to drive their operations and maps, but also contribute back. We want to continue to foster that and contribute both directions in this conversation. There's also a moment in time for response, especially in the HOT community being activated, and likewise a long history between Esri and the HOT community and OSM sending back to Haiti and beyond and moving forward where we are today, working globally together in a lot of the same geographies. And so we wanted to share a bit of our program that mirrors a lot of the activations that many of you may be called in to support or actively supporting globally. And we do this through our disaster response program. It is Esri's 24/7 operational arm that delivers technical and GIS support to organizations around the world. Now, this is for all hazards, all crises. So no matter how big or how small or the type or location, Esri's team is available to support. And we do that through our regional distributors in country. So we actually work Esri Inc., Olivier and I, myself in the US, Olivier in France, and together we able to push out to our country offices and down locally in the communities, providing backstop support and increased activity. This program is freely available to anybody, an Esri user or not. So as a community of and a HOT member, if there are things that you get pulled into and you need additional assistance or capabilities for mapping to do the work that you are doing locally, know that we are here to support you as well. And we could do that by making access to ArcGIS software available for the response, but also to help with implementation of specific workflows. So a great example may be that the OSM community in HOT is activated in a location, building footprints are coming online post-event. That diff that Olivier alluded to earlier is minutely, so we can actually pull those in and then be able to wrap that around a mobile application to work offline in a field environment doing structural assessments, for example. So our team is conversant in how to manage some of those common workflows related to crises and disasters, or how to communicate with dashboards and maps for both the content that you're delivering and the content from Esri, but also context around any of these crises and disasters as you start to tell stories with the local community. It's also the geospatial data, just to pick that point up a minute. So Olivier alluded to our imagery that's available openly to be able to use inside of OSM to digitize from, but it's also post-event imagery through our partnerships with many of the providers, and also Esri's Open Living Atlas. So we will contribute all of our data into the response community to allow more context and content in areas where we have data coverage, both that's Basemap data for imagery and streets and roads, but also real-time content for cones of uncertainty for cyclones globally, for example, flood polygons, live radar and weather. So these are all available for you to build on top of as well. And it's also tech support. So for those of you that leverage Esri technology, we know these are mission critical moments in time. And so we certainly want to make sure that you have access to this support team 24/7. You can find more, just as Olivier mentioned, in terms of our response. Esri.com/disaster will take you to that. You'll see categorization by natural hazards as well as man-made opportunities for humanitarian specifically called out. And just by sense of scale, just to show, historically, our biggest year on record as a program was 2017. There was a lot of hurricanes and cyclones in the Caribbean, Latin America, and the US, wildfires. But this year alone, in 2020, we've been leading Esri's collective efforts globally for COVID-19. The next slide kind of lays out and shows that footprint of all the requests for assistance, if you will, that have been out there. To date, that's more than 5,500 organizations globally that have reached out and asked for assistance in some way, that we're connecting partners with, OSM data contributing into the decision-making process. So I just wanted to share that as a global footprint so that you know wherever you are in the world, that our team is there. And I mentioned again, the country offices that we have kind of locally making a point of contact for you. So again, reach out, let us know how we can support you no matter what the crisis or disaster. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is just some of the lessons that we've learned coming out of these crises and disasters over the years. And I say that because of the workflow component that I mentioned as part of our disaster response program. We went back and we've looked at the years of history over 26 years of history now for the disaster response program, which started with an earthquake in Southern California, the Northridge earthquake in 1994, and where we are today globally supporting the COVID pandemic, but also the bushfires in Australia, the fires in the Western US, flooding and cyclones globally. And we found that there are 6 common things that people need good geographic data for, good information for, and good applications for. And they fall into these 6 broad categories. It's the ability to understand potential impact to people and property, understand and how to deploy resources and where it's needed most. How do we monitor real-time changing conditions for flood levels or the cone again and the forecasts that are coming from a cyclone, for example? How do you report and assess damage in the field? And then how do you communicate all of that, both to partners, so who's working where, but then also how do we communicate that with residents who need actionable information to take action in an evacuation or post-event for recovery, and with the media. And so we've developed a series of tools or templates. These are freely available open source code templates on GitHub that you can download and use. If you're an Esri user, they plug right into ArcGIS. If you use another platform, you can certainly take those code bases. Feel free to extend and modify and fork those and move forward. But we're trying to do as much as we can as a toolkit. So the great example here is that all of these require good data to operate. And so that's why we're so excited in this partnership with OSM and the HOT community to really take this to the next level, both in the data front, but also operationally together, how we can provide more assistance where it's needed, because we know the value of the data and the good work that you as a community do and want to continue to contribute to that. So Olivier, with that, I'll turn it back to you to close us out.
All right, thanks very much, Ryan. Apologies, apparently, yeah, my connection had some issues, so the video went. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening. I suppose we can open up for questions or have those questions on the chat. I'm not too sure exactly how that's going to work, but thanks again for your time. Our emails are there, so if we don't have time for questions, then please do feel free to reach out to us for anything, and we'll be more than happy to answer and to help out as we can. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Olivier, and thank you, Ryan. If we can keep those questions in the chat, and please keep those questions coming during the whole talk. We are collecting them for the